Gentlemen, stay with me. I want to move quickly away from the manifesto and talk about former President John Mahama, reposting content that has largely been described by the NPP as ethnocentric. And we've heard the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, asking him to apologize. Dr. Sediu, we thought that this year at least, we will be talking about issues. We've just been talking about the manifesto and the content, all expecting the content of the NDC manifesto. Where does this latest issue leave us?
I'm so glad that our democracy has been moving away from politics of insults to politics of issues. But you see, every election has a multi-pronged approaches. You see, the basis of political parties are energized differently. And sometimes you often see maybe one or two individuals within political parties that seem to appeal to specific base of their supporters. And they may say some things that do not inure to the broader consultation of our democracy moving forward. But what I do think is that we have to be very consistent as a country when it comes to eschewing the whole concept of politics of insults and equalization, which doesn't help. If something is not good today, it shouldn't be good in the past and should not be good moving forward. When we begin to selectively condemn issues and leave others, then we are doing great disservice to our democracy. One, when people begin to use names and tags that's kind of stereotype people, it is not good for our democracy. And we must consistently condemn it. We shouldn't wait when some people say then it is free to go, when other people say then it is something that needs to be condemned. We have to be very consistent so that our democracy can coherently and consistently grow.
Evans, I'm sure you appreciate where we are with the pressure that's mounting now coming from the NPP. There are people who also say that, well, there are certain comments that have been made in the past that did not get people either asking for a retraction or apology.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those, every election year has a moment like this where something is said that crosses a certain line. It's been, both parties have been guilty of this really in the past. I must actually say this year has been slightly more decent. I don't know whether it's because of COVID, but it's been slightly more decent. The issues are front and center more. This, I guess, is a moment where the line has been crossed. And there's no justification for calling a particular tribe, or an ethnic group Sakawa. You cannot justify it in any way. I mean, and definitely we've heard the condemnations. Of course, the MPP is unhappy about it. But it is the way politics is done, unfortunately. Not only in Ghana, by the way. Look, I watched the United States election, the campaigning. It is even worse there. It's terrible in the US now than before. I mean, Ghana is far ahead in terms of the quality of our discourse this year going into the 2020 elections than it is in the US, one of the biggest democracies you can find anywhere in the world, more than 200-year history. And so we're doing well. I mean, this is one of those low moments, and I think it's isolated. And the way the NDC handles it will show if they actually want to play the bigger boy in this. I mean, sometimes when you cross the line, especially when your candidate has been so articulate in putting forward issues, when the line is crossed, the way you approach it, if you are insistent, then you are alienating a whole chunk of the people. And this is the eastern region you're talking about, which is also very important. And I doubt if John Mahama and the NDC will vehemently defend this. If you do, if politics is about numbers, if you alienate a particular part of a population, that cannot help your cause in any way. And so I really would like to see the NDC approach this in a bit more calm and mature manner than simply say, well, let's say we justify it. It's not justifiable. If it wasn't, and I agree with Dr. Sediu, it wasn't in the past, it was wrong in the past, and the NDC possibly may have been on the receiving end of similar attacks in the past, and everybody condemned it, it can be wrong now. And so I really want to see the NDC do something more on this particular matter, probably even withdrawing, which possibly may be difficult, but it's definitely not good for us going into an election where the issues largely have been dominant.
Let me ask the Deputy General Secretary of the party, Mr. Peter Otokuno, which direction they intend going from here. With all that you've heard, sir, what's your reaction?
Well, I strongly disagree with what Evans said, that this is one of the lowest moments in the campaign. I strongly disagree. It is not the lowest moment in the campaign. There have been far more lower periods in this campaign than this. No line has been crossed. We have run a very decent campaign. President Mahama has been the advocate for a decent campaign, and you can see that from all our communicators. We are an opposition party.
But let's speak to this specific issue. Let's speak to this specific issue.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm doing, Mama B. Exactly, that's what I'm doing. Others have even criticized that we have not been strong enough. We have not, been hard enough as opposition party, and we are very glad about that. It's part of our strategy to run a very decent campaign, and we have kept to this. Indeed, President Mahama said was not out of place at all. Indeed, we are talking about the Ejapad deal and how we think how fraudulent we think it has been, and how a group of people who are coming from the president's family, are trying to dupe the country, and that is where this Achem Sakawa boys thing came from. It doesn't mean that all Achems are Sakawa boys. For example, if you say Wali Adam Smith, doesn't mean that all people in Wali are Adam Smith. No, they cannot be Adam Smith. So I think that we have to put the context and be fair to the issues. We have had occasions where President Mahama has been called incompetent Mahama. In fact, his title as a president was removed, and they called him incompetent Mahama. Not on a single occasion did President Akufo-Addo and his running mate called President Mahama a president, and excluded the incompetent. Nobody said anything. I didn't hear Evans. I didn't hear anybody. It's part of the politics. So I think that we should be fair in some of these issues. We know President Mahama's nature. President Mahama will not mean malice to make such a statement.
So you insist that he hasn't said anything wrong? You insist that he hasn't said anything wrong, which means there's not going to be any apology or retraction?
Absolutely not. There's not going to be any apology about it. And you see, in recent times, the president has even embarked on a campaign of name calling anybody in the history of this country. Even through this COVID, all his address, he has been calling people names. He's been calling President Mahama names. He's called him Neseya and Jeremiah and all those things. All manner of names, have been called President Mahama. And it's actually the kind of campaign that the MPP ran, name-calling campaign. And so if, for example, there is a very, very dirty deal that has been cooked by this government, by the family members of the president, mostly Achem, and we say that, okay, this is a Sakawa deal by Achem Sakawa boys. How does that, extend to all Achem people? Okay. I think that we should be fair to the issues. And again, the president's reaction. Evans, we are discussing this because of the president's reaction. If the president has not reacted, I'm sure we will not be discussing this. President Mahama didn't express that level of anger that President Akufo-Addo has expressed on this matter. That is why we didn't have all of us discussing it and calling for somebody to apologize.
I thank you for your time. Let me just quick reaction because of what Peter Otokuno just said. Dr. Alidu Sediu.
Sorry?
He's given us context, right? And he's saying that there's not going to be any apology or retraction.
I like the fact that Ivan said this is an isolated case, but I also like the fact that Peter mentioned the context. You see, they didn't just call people in the Eastern region or Achin people and insulted them. The statement was made, I think, from Honorable Isaac Adongo with respect to a specific deal. And then they were actually saying that the amount of money that Ghanaians are going to lose in this particular deal amounts to the kind of scamming Sakawa boys do. So this was a kind of comparative terms with regards to a specific issue. So if we take the context out, it will look like a whole group or a whole region have been stereotyped. I think, like I mentioned earlier, those kind of politics of insults and attacks doesn't help. But you see, in a campaign in a campaign period of this time, some party fans, some party supporters think the NDC has been so soft, looking at what the MPP has said about them and their leaders over the years. And some people are not happy. Though this may energize specific base of the party supporters, I still think they should manage it well. But apologizing, I don't think they should apologize.
Okay. All right. Dr. Aliu Sediu, thank you. Evans, the last say on this with the context that's been provided by Peter Tokuno.
I insist. I understand how politics is played. But when you begin to mention ethnic groups, you are in dangerous territory. Otokuno mentioned that John Mahama was called incompetent. That was to his person. And if you attack Nanado's person, I think sometimes it's a really fair game. I mean, politics is played like that. I mean, but once you begin to, the language becomes about an ethnic group, a tribe. In the country where we have so much diversity, I think it's a pretty dangerous, slippery slope. Knowing that in politics, sometimes the context doesn't matter as much as the perception it creates. That is why we are having this particular conversation. The context is mentioned, the perception, right, has been created that it's an attack against an ethnic group. You can struggle to explain it away, but the people have already formed an opinion on this, right? And that's what you have. That's what I'm saying. It is dangerous. Don't go there. Once you start introducing tribes, Evers, Gans, Achims, you are in trouble. In a country like ours, I wish politics would be done without those labels introduced in the conversation. Attack the person's personality all you want. Politics is done like that. Call him incompetent, call him blind, whatever it is, but do not go attacking or mentioning people's tribes that people can get very passionate about, and that is dangerous.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Evans, I agree with Evans' submission, but what I do want to emphasize is the element of consistency. Even in the run-up to the voter registration exercise, some ethnic groups and some people who were classified as not being Ghanaians. Nobody apologized for that. We have to be very consistent. You understand? Consistency is the key. What is wrong is wrong. What is right is right. No matter who says it against, once we begin to isolate parties or groups.
Hello, Mama B.
Yes, just make it really quick for me. We have to end the conversation.
If I may, you see, when you seek equity, you come with clean hands. This is a president who has supervised and never condemned attacks on various tribes, in terms of, bigotry. When they were in opposition, you heard what they said about Nordness. Nordness are watchman. The presidency is not their business. You never heard the president condemn that. And I'm sure Evans knows about this. You heard the comments by Osafumaf, whose son is engrossed in this dirty deal, as well. Also make comments about, other tribes who do not have anything, they do not contribute anything to the nation, so they don't deserve the presidency. All these comments have been made by people who are very close to President Akufo-Addo. He has never condemned that. And so many other issues. So when we want to dwell on this matter and create the impression the NDC is on a mission against some tribe, then it becomes very duplicitous.
I guess it comes back to the same issue. From the NDC, there isn't going to be any apology or retraction. We get your point, Evans Mensah and Dr. Aliu Sediu. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Thank you. And watch out for our manifesto conversation, the coverage of the NDC's manifesto launch, right here on Joy News, on your election headquarters, on radio, television, and of course, online. When we come back, we're talking about, it's related to the election and still on your election headquarters on our coverage of the 2020 elections. There's a group that's been criticized in recent times for staying too quiet, for not commenting on the issues when they come up national issues of disturbances and so on. The National Peace Council, they're out today talking about the vigilantism bill, but of course this is also an issue that they will have to clarify. The Executive Secretary of the National Peace Council, Mr. George Amo, is my guest after this.